the Saint Augustine Lighthouse, a light in the dark, and the spirits who remain. Let me take you to Anastasia Island, where a spiral tower stands tall against the Atlantic winds, its black and white stripes twisting upward like the threads of time. Here, where land meets sea and history never quite lets go, rises the Saint Augustine Lighthouse, a place of warning, of watchfulness, and some say, of whispers. But before it became known for shadowy figures and eerie footsteps, this lighthouse served a much simpler, nobler purpose: to keep sailors safe. The story begins in Saint Augustine, Florida, the oldest continuously inhabited European-founded city in the United States. Founded in 1565 by Spanish explorer Pedro Menendez, this coastal town played a vital role in colonial navigation and defense. For ships trying to reach her shores, the approach was dangerous. Shifting sands and shallow bars waited just beneath the surface. As early as the 1500s, the Spanish built wooden watchtowers on Anastasia Island, lighting fires to guide their ships. But it wasn't until 1824, under American rule, that Florida's first official lighthouse was built here, using the shell stone coquina. That lighthouse stood for 50 years, but nature had other plans. Erosion gnawed away the coastline until the original tower was on the verge of collapsing into the sea. So in 1871, construction began on a new lighthouse, a mighty structure of brick and iron set further inland to withstand time and tide. It took 3 years to complete. When the light was lit on October 15, 1874, it became a beacon not just of safety, but of engineering and perseverance. At 165 feet tall, the tower houses 219 steps to the top. Its first-order Fresnel lens, crafted in France, could project a beam of light 24 miles out to sea. And its iconic black and white spiral design made it unmistakable to sailors navigating Florida's eastern coast. But a lighthouse doesn't run on engineering alone. It runs on the dedication of those who care for it. In the 1800s, lighthouse keepers lived difficult, isolated lives. They had to climb the tower multiple times a day, polish the lens, refill the oil lamp, and ensure the beacon never failed, especially during storms. They lived on site with their families in the keeper's house, just steps from the tower. Their days were full of quiet duty and sometimes intense solitude. The ocean was their front yard and the light their sacred task. During the Civil War, Confederate troops removed the lens and sabotaged the old lighthouse, attempting to make Union ships crash on the coast. After the war, Union forces returned and temporarily restored the light, until the new tower was completed. As decades passed, technology evolved. In 1936, the lighthouse was electrified, and by 1955, it was automated, ending the era of live-in keepers. The house was abandoned, the lens dimmed, and for a time, the lighthouse stood quiet. But quiet doesn't always mean empty. In 1970, tragedy struck again, this time by human hands. The keeper's house was gutted by arson, its historic interior lost. But the people of Saint Augustine rallied. The Junior Service League began restoring the tower and rebuilding the house. By the late 1980s, the lighthouse was placed on the National Register of Historic Places, and in 1994, it opened as the Saint Augustine Lighthouse and Maritime Museum. Today, it is a beloved historical site and one of the most active paranormal locations in the country. In the summer of 1873, while the towering new Saint Augustine Lighthouse was still under construction, life around the site was filled with the sounds of hammering, shouting labourers and the innocent laughter of children. The man overseeing the project was Hezekiah Pitti, superintendent of lighthouse construction and a devoted family man. Like many families of the time, the Pittis lived on site in government-provided housing. While the adults worked on the tower, The children found ways to entertain themselves in a rough and dusty landscape of timber, tracks, and tools. One of the children's favourite diversions was an old supply cart, a heavy-duty, hand-pushed rail car that ran on a narrow track from the construction site down to the water, where boats would drop off building materials. Workers would fill the cart with bricks or barrels, then guide it carefully down the hill. To the children, it was an irresistible temptation. On a warm afternoon in late July 1873, Eliza and Mary Pitty, two of Hezekiah's daughters, decided to ride the cart along with another young girl, a daughter of an African-American worker on the site, whose name has sadly been lost to history. The girls climbed in, giggling, unaware that this innocent game would end in tragedy. As the cart began rolling, it picked up speed, too much speed. The wooden brakes failed. The cart thundered uncontrollably down the hill and plunged directly into a saltwater basin at the bottom of the slope, a shallow inlet known as the marsh basin or bayou. The sudden crash caught the attention of workers nearby, who raced to the scene and dove into the water. They were able to pull the girls out, but Eliza, age 13, and Mary, age 15, were already gone. The third girl survived, though traumatized. The Pitty family and the entire construction crew were devastated. The work halted briefly, but with the intensity of 19th century industrial life, the project soon resumed. The girls were buried in unmarked graves, as was common at the time for unexpected deaths among working-class families. No headstone marks the final resting place of Eliza and Mary, though it is believed they lie somewhere nearby. Not long after their deaths, strange things began happening on the grounds. Workers reported hearing children laughing in the empty marshes. Footsteps echoed up the spiral staircase of the unfinished tower, even though no one was inside. Objects moved. Lanterns were mysteriously extinguished. A few claimed to have seen two young girls in period clothing running and playing near the lighthouse base, only to vanish moments later. Over the decades, these stories evolved into legend. Today, many believe the Pitty sisters never fully left the lighthouse grounds. Staff, volunteers, and visitors alike have experienced chilling moments attributed to the girls. Tour guests report giggling and the sound of bare feet running on wood floors in the keeper's house. Some feel the tug of a child's hand on their clothes when no one is there. In one famous encounter, a guest claimed to see a young girl at the top of the lighthouse, smiling, only to disappear when approached. Flashlights flicker during tours, particularly around the staircase, and many have heard a child whisper, "Come play," echoing in the tower. What makes the story of the Pitty sisters especially haunting is its human element. It's not just a tale of ghosts, it's a story of family, loss, and the deep emotional scars that linger in the places we live, love, and die. Their story reminds us that lighthouses are not just beacons for ships. They're repositories of memory, of grief and joy, of lives both ordinary and extraordinary. And perhaps, just perhaps, Eliza and Mary Pitty are still there, not lost, not forgotten, but forever caught in the game they never finished playing. William Hahn, a dedicated Civil War veteran, served as head keeper from 1875 to 1889, one of the longest tenures in the lighthouse's history. A decorated Union Army veteran, Hahn fought at Fort Sumter, Gettysburg, and elsewhere during the Civil War. Hahn and his wife Kate became well-known fixtures in Saint Augustine's society. They were respected not just for maintaining the light, but for their fierce sense of duty and service. Imagine it's a sultry summer evening in 1885. The tower stands tall against a gathering storm, the waves crashing below. Keeper Hahn is at the base of the spiral staircase, oil lamp in hand. "Good evening, Mr. Hahn," a worker called from the cookhouse. "Evening," Hahn replied, straining to hear over the wind. He climbed the 219 steps to the lantern room, lamp in hand. His steps steady, his purpose clear. Hahn wasn't just lighting a beacon, he was holding up hope for anxious sailors, his community, and himself. Night after night, storm after storm, he ascended those steps, tending to the first-order Fresnel lens that guided ships 24 miles offshore. The storm hits with force. Lightning cracks, and Hahn remains calm, relighting extinguished wicks and wiping away salt and condensation until dawn. A local later recalled, "I can still see the light from the tower cutting through the night. It was like a hand guiding us home." But the storms took their toll on the keeper, his health, and his spirit. After Hahn's death from consumption in 1889, stories emerged of his presence lingering in the keeper's house, coughing in the parlor late at night, resembling the hacking sounds of tuberculosis, rocking chair swaying despite no breeze, especially after guests accidentally misidentified him. A faint perfume of pipe tobacco, his known habit, lingering in the tower even when the keeper knew there was no fire. Some say he didn't want to leave his post, even in death. He was a man of solemn duty. Perhaps that duty never ended, even after his life did. William Hahn's story encapsulates what so many lighthouse keepers endured. Long, lonely hours in an unforgiving environment, perilous conditions during storms and isolation, community service that often went unrecognized outside the coastal towns. A legacy that continues to ripple, not just in local lore, but in moments of unexplained phenomena. When guests on the keeper's house tours feel something brush past them, or hear a cough out of the blue, they may be in the presence of the man who lit the way through countless storms. Even paranormal investigators, skeptics included, have been startled by what they've captured. Recordings have picked up children's voices, and shadowy figures have been seen darting through the lighthouse interior. The Saint Augustine Lighthouse had always been surrounded by whispers. But in 2006, those whispers caught the attention of a team trained to chase shadows. That year, the cast and crew of Ghost Hunters, the popular paranormal investigation series on the Sci-Fi Channel, arrived on Anastasia Island. Their mission, to spend the night inside the tower and see if the stories were real. The crew was led by Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson, founders of TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society. They were former plumbers by day, ghost investigators by night, not thrill seekers, not con artists. Just men who ask the same question we all do. What happens after we die? When they arrived at St. Augustine, the staff told them everything. The sound of footsteps when no one is around. Children's laughter echoing in the keeper's house. Tools that vanish only to reappear in strange places. A dark figure seen watching from the tower's lantern room. Jason and Grant set up their cameras, infrared, thermal, night vision and audio recorders. They left no corner of the lighthouse unchecked. The most infamous moment came late into the night. As the camera panned across the spiral staircase, a tall, dark figure appeared high in the tower. The crew froze. No footsteps, no sound. The figure moved along the railing, then disappeared around a corner. They rushed up the stairs, fast, nearly breathless. But when they reached the top, nothing, no one, no place to hide, no other exit. They rewound the footage, and there it was, a full-bodied shadow figure in motion. Later, audio review revealed unexplained voices, disembodied whispers. One recording picked up a breathy voice saying, "Help me." In another, a child's giggle followed by what sounded like the word, "Stop." The team knew children had died here. Eliza and Mary Pitty, drowned in 1873. But these voices weren't part of history, they were part of right now. Investigators reported physical sensations, the feeling of being watched, sudden cold spots that moved. One crew member felt their shirt pulled on the stairs. No one behind them. And then there were the lights. Flashlights turning off and on. Equipment batteries draining instantly. A heavy iron door that slammed shut with no wind. When the investigation ended, Jason and Grant didn't hesitate. "This is one of the most active places we've ever been," they said. The Saint Augustine Lighthouse wasn't just haunted, it was intelligent. The spirits here didn't just exist, they interacted. The episode became a fan favorite. Paranormal forums exploded with discussion. Ghost tourism in Saint Augustine surged, and the lighthouse, it stood tall, quiet, waiting for its next visitors, and perhaps watching from the top. The episode is still widely cited by fans and skeptics alike as one of the most compelling in the series' run. It brought national attention to the Pity Sisters tragedy, the mystery of the shadow figure, and the lighthouse's long and layered past. Today, the Saint Augustine Lighthouse is more than a building. It's a time capsule, a museum, a legend. You can visit during the day to learn about maritime archaeology, shipwrecks, and navigation. Or you can come at night, if you dare. For the Dark of the Moon ghost tour, climbing the tower by flashlight. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, one thing is clear. The past is still very much alive here. The Saint Augustine Lighthouse has seen it all: wars, storms, tragedy, and triumph. Its light has guided thousands safely home. And if you believe the stories, it still hosts those who lived and died within its glow. So if you ever visit and feel a tug on your sleeve or hear a giggle echoing in the dark, don't be afraid. It might just be the lighthouse keepers still keeping watch. Or the little girls still playing after all these years. If you're planning a visit to St. Augustine, the Lighthouse and Maritime Museum is a must-see destination, offering breathtaking views, fascinating history, and a touch of the supernatural. Open daily, the site features museum exhibits, shipwreck archaeology labs, and the chance to climb 219 steps to the top of the lighthouse for panoramic views of the coast. For thrill seekers, Dark of the Moon ghost tours are available after hours. The site is operated by a non-profit, which is dedicated to maritime preservation and education. Visitors can support their mission through admissions, memberships, or direct donations, helping preserve this historic beacon for future generations. Learn more or donate at saintaugustinelighthouse.org.